We define ourselves through our history, culture, and food, but we so rarely think to stop and ask, how does it all work? Revealed examines the hows and whys while pulling the curtain back on the things you never thought to ask.
On this episode, Central Park, a green oasis offering a breath of fresh air in the heart of the concrete jungle.
Central Park is its own little world.
It's not just a piece of real estate, it really has a story to tell.
Central Park is an incredible oasis for animals, but also for people.
That's the backyard of every New Yorker.
From its inception, Central Park has been a sanctuary that offers a peaceful retreat from the hustle and bustle of urban life. The 843 acres of man-made park came about at a time when the city was rapidly growing, and planners recognized the need for a refuge amidst the growing urban sprawl.
They realized if the grid got implemented in full, there'd be no green space.
From birding to live theater under the stars, Central Park is more than just green space. It's a living, breathing part of New York's history and culture, where every visit tells a new story.
I bet the shows where it started to rain or drizzle, I've watched raccoons climb up trees behind Merle Street.
Central Park's landscape is a blend of human craftsmanship and untouched wilderness, together creating an urban oasis like no other. But this lush green space didn't always exist. Central Park's story begins long before its lakes and quiet woods, in a growing city in desperate need of a place for respite.
If you look at the really old maps of New York, the majority of the settlement was at the tip of the island. So as the city grew, they start to cut through more of the streets and so spur the development as that went along.
Between 1790 and 1810, New York's population had tripled, and city planners believed that by 1860, the city would rival Paris, which had a population of around 500,000. That would end up being an extraordinary underestimate. By 1860, New York's population had surged to over 800,000. This rapidly growing city needed a plan. Until now, Lower Manhattan was a hodgepodge of streets with no actual order to them. Upper Manhattan was made up of farms and meadows with country roads running through them. Three men were tasked with finding a civil engineering solution to New York's ever-expanding cartography. Gouverneur Morris, a founding father of the United States, politician and land surveyor John Rutherford, and New York State Surveyor General Simon DeWitt.
In 1811, the commissioners of the city decided that the grid was going to be the system of laying out streets in New York City.
The plan was nothing new. Cities had been built this way before, beginning with Mohenjo-Daro in what is now Pakistan. The plan, outlined on a map over 8 feet long, called for a massive grid, 12 avenues wide and 155 streets long. The only problem?
Writers like Whitman and other people who romanticized the natural environment, they realized if the grid got implemented in full, there'd be no green space.
Advocates for open space began pushing back, arguing that a city without greenery would suffocate its residents, leaving no room for parks or natural beauty. William Cullen Bryant, the editor of the New York Evening Post, was quoted saying that commerce is devouring inch by inch the coast of the island, and called to rescue land for health and recreation. Bryant's activism was infectious, and with significant public support, in 1853 the New York State Legislature passed the Central Park Act, allowing the city to acquire more than 750 acres of land to build a public park.
They started looking at spots in different parts of Manhattan, and then the city settled on this area, and they encouraged the idea of a competition.
The city held a contest with prizes up to $2,000. That's over $1 million today. 33 plans were submitted, but it was the Greensward plan, submitted by Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux, that would win out. The plan called for a more natural design to the park. The intended effect was to transport parkgoers out of the city to somewhere more like upstate New York.
It's almost like being in the Adirondacks. Olmsted and Vaux were really like movie directors. They're setting up your view, they're making you take walkways and directions that deliver you at very special spots.
It was revolutionary for its time, emphasizing open spaces, scenic vistas, and the idea of a pastoral retreat in the middle of a city and a sharp departure from the more formal geometric gardens popular in Europe. Construction began in 1858, and it was a massive undertaking requiring the reshaping of land, the creation of artificial lakes, and the planting of thousands of trees.
It certainly has manipulated nature, but I would say the bones of the park are nature.
The project required not only moving earth and rocks, but also moving people. Over 1,600 residents, many of them Irish immigrants and African Americans, living in communities like Seneca Village, were displaced to make way for the park.
We're in this sort of central hub of Seneca Village within this area where there are 3 churches and a school. So it's sort of like this spot is sort of like the town center. This location actually was the site of All Angels Church. It was a prominently European congregation, had African Americans as members, and also documented intermarriage between some of the Irish members of their church and African Americans who lived in the neighborhood.
Seneca Village, founded in 1825, was one of the first African American middle-class communities in New York City. The village stretched from 82nd to 89th Street between what is now Central Park West and 7th Avenue. Over the next 3 decades, it grew into a thriving community of more than 250 residents, with homes, churches, and even a school.
When they were contacted and notified that the park was going to be built, I think they knew by 1855 and they had to be out by 1857. It's an interesting story for me as an African American because I can still go, and Summit Rock is still the highest point in the park. I can kind of see why they selected the spot. I can still touch, emotionally and physically that sense of history.
Central Park slowly took shape, and it was a monumental task to reshape the land, blasting through bedrock, draining swamps, and carting in millions of cubic feet of soil to create the rolling meadows, lakes, and wooded areas that exist today.
Olmsted enhanced nature. Here, the infrastructure of Manhattan is rock. And so he's building around, he might chisel down some rock or whatever, but the high points are really points to where he didn't add height. The highest points were really nature's.
The park's design blended natural beauty with innovative engineering. The network of winding paths, bridges, and tunnels were carefully planned to separate pedestrian traffic from carriages, a pioneering concept at the time.
And the genius of that is that it bridges over all the streets that cut through the park. So when you're moving through Central Park, you have no sense that you're crossing these major thoroughfares. The park seems continuous.
By the 1860s, the southern portion of the park was open to the public, and New Yorkers began flocking to their new oasis. At the time of its opening, Central Park was the first major landscape public park in the United States, and was also the largest urban park in the country. Today, the park is home to over 18,000 trees, 150 acres of lakes and streams, 58 miles of pathways, and 36 bridges and arches. But it was never meant to be just a green space in a crowded city. It was envisioned as a living work of art, a museum without walls, where nature, design, and culture could coexist. The park boasts 141 statues and monuments, all cared for by a team of preservationists.
My name is Hamid, this is Eric and John. We are a preservation team that takes care of Central Park.
So a lot of the wood that we use around here for our work is reclaimed or it's native species.
Even though it's a man-made landscape, we try to make it as natural as possible. Try to keep it all together to where it kind of marries into each other, that this is a New York landscape.
My favorite aspect of the park is the surviving existing structures that have somehow managed to remain here and not get torn down for 100 years. It's always fun to see something that someone else was enjoying a century ago, and that kind of fires me up.
Central Park features several notable statues, each with its own history and significance. The Mall and Literary Walk is the only straight stretch in the park. It features monuments of famous writers including William Shakespeare and Robert Burns. Installed in 1873, the Angel of the Water statue at Bethesda Fountain was created by Emma Stebbins, the first woman to receive a public art commission in New York City. A significant figure in LGBTQ+ history, Stebbins was in a committed relationship with actress Charlotte Cushman while creating the sculpture, which remains a symbol of healing and hope. The statue commemorates the Croton water system, which brought fresh water to New York City. The Croton Aqueduct, a marvel of 19th century engineering, carried water from the old Croton Dam in Westchester County to the receiving reservoir in what is now Central Park's Great Lawn and Turtle Pond. The reservoir's new location is named for Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis and is now a popular jogging spot for New Yorkers. Some monuments are even older than the park itself.
I would say that the monument here that I've seen most is, it's not technically a sculpture, but it's fascinating, is the Cleopatra's Needle, the obelisk.
Cleopatra's Needle was a gift from the Egyptian government to the United States in 1879 as a gesture of goodwill. This ancient obelisk, dating back over 3,000 years, was transported from Alexandria and erected in Central Park in 1881.
And it's kind of amazing to get so close to hieroglyphics that someone carved in antiquity. You're so close to something that someone had laid hands on thousands of years ago, which is, I don't know, it's kind of a great experience.
And others come from a world of wonder and curiosity.
Alice in Wonderland is pretty cool statue. I have a 3-year-old daughter at home who cannot stop climbing on things, and I love that kids are encouraged to climb on it and interact with it because they can't hurt it, and they can only make it better.
Central Park isn't just a retreat for people, it's a sanctuary for wildlife. The Central Park Zoo traces its roots back to 1864, making it one of the oldest zoos in the United States. But the park is home to more than just zoo animals. Central Park's vast landscapes provide a crucial stopover for hundreds of bird species, making it a haven for bird watchers from around the world.
It looks like someone has found a blue jay feather and stuck it right here for everyone to enjoy. You can see the gorgeous blue and black. Blue jays are pretty common in Central Park all year round, and they're also just a gorgeous bird. I have been a birder since I was a little kid. I grew up in New York City and spent time in Central Park. I was into nature and wildlife, and birds are one of the most accessible forms of wildlife, especially for a city kid.
With over 200 species spotted throughout the year, the park has become a globally recognized destination for birdwatchers. From the vibrant blue jays to the elusive warblers, Central Park offers a rare glimpse into the wild heart of New York City.
Birding has been a popular pastime in Central Park since the late 1800s. In fact, Central Park was the location for this country's very first annual census of wintering bird populations that now takes place all over the world, but it started right here in Central Park in the year 1899.
In the 19th century, these counts were actually hunts. That meant killing as many birds as possible and then counting them. In 1900, ornithologist Frank Chapman changed that by proposing a bird count instead, sparking the start of the Christmas bird count. Bird counting tracks population trends and supports conservation by engaging the public in vital data collection. Today, the park's diverse habitats, woodlands, meadows, and water bodies attract a wide variety of bird species, making it a prime birding destination.
New York City is a birding hotspot. Over the course of the year, more than 300 species of birds come through New York City. In fact, it's one of the best places in the entire country for bird watching. Central Park lies right on the birds' migratory route. Many birds migrate along what's called the Atlantic Flyway, up and down the coast in the spring and the fall, looking for great habitat to stop and rest, to eat, to fuel their journey to their summering grounds in the north and their wintering grounds in the south. One of the best spots, and my favorite, is the Ramble, which is the densely wooded area right in the center of the park. It's a forested area that traps migratory songbirds and is spectacular in the spring. The park also hosts many different species of raptors, which are hawks and owls, both the celebrity birds like you may have heard about, but also birds that are native to this area.
Pale Mail, a famous red-tailed hawk, arrived in Central Park in 1991. He made his nest on a building at 927 Fifth Avenue, which became an iconic birdwatching spot. Another celebrity was Flacco, a Eurasian eagle owl who gained attention after escaping from the Central Park Zoo in 2023 before its tragic and much publicized death in 2024. Central Park is not just a birdwatcher's paradise, it can also be a stage.
In Central Park, there's always been performances. There have been bands, there have been roving theaters, roving actors. We see buskers now anytime you're visiting the park. But a permanent home for something as large as Shakespeare in the Park, a 2,000-seat theater under the stars, there's nothing else like that.
Shakespeare in the Park is one of New York City's most treasured traditions. Each summer, thousands of people wait in line for free tickets to see the show. It dates back to 1954, and it all starts with one man.
Joe Papp, who's the founder and the real visionary behind the Public Theater. He initially started touring all around the city with a mobile production of Shakespeare, and eventually settled here in Central Park.
But Papp found one challenge in Robert Moses, the powerful parks commissioner known for shaping much of New York City's infrastructure.
Robert Moses decided that it would be completely inappropriate to have a free performance here at Shakespeare in the Park. And that became a huge fight, because at the heart of Joe's mission was that providing Shakespeare for free to the people of the city was absolutely essential.
Papp refused to comply with Moses' demand to charge for the performances, which Moses claimed would help fund the park's maintenance. So Papp took his case to the press and the courts. Moses called him a communist and tried to get the mayor on his side, but eventually the court ruled in Papp's favor, saying that Moses has been arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable.
The culture doesn't belong to just a few people, doesn't belong to just the elite, doesn't belong to just Robert Moses. It actually belongs to all of us. This theater opened in 1962 with The Merchant of Venice, with some real luminaries of the world of stage and screen, but people really getting their starts here. The actors who like to appear in Shakespeare in the Park are really some of the biggest stars around, and they delight in coming here and being in front of audiences because this experience is so special. We've had Anne Hathaway, Meryl Streep, Kevin Kline, George C. Scott, James Earl Jones, a raft of other folks who are now very common household names, but who actually back in the day were just getting their start. The theater is an absolutely beautiful design. It's a half circle in front of a giant circular stage. It's the largest stage in the city of New York. It's really enveloping the stage, enveloping the artists, and letting everyone feel, even in a house of 2,000 seats, that they are as close as possible to the action.
There are also often uninvited but welcome performers who sometimes make a cameo.
Because we're an outdoor theater and because we're in the middle of Central Park, you can only imagine what sorts of guests we have join us on stage from time to time. I can't tell you how many raccoons who live in this area, and they are more than happy to trundle on in the middle of Meryl Streep's monologue and get their stage time.
And while all the world's a stage, this one features a unique backdrop like none other.
It's really incredible that Belvedere Castle is located where it is. The audience essentially faces Belvedere Castle, and many a designer will think about how to feature the castle in their design.
Belvedere Castle, built in 1872, has served as a lookout point, and since 1919 as the location of the National Weather Service's official weather station in Central Park. In 2024, the theater closed for renovations, its first since it was opened.
It's really not had this significant an intervention since 1962 when it was first constructed. There have been a couple of renovations, but they've really been more cleanups than what we're undertaking now. When this renovation is complete, they'll laugh, they'll cry, they'll get pulled into the story the same way that people have been doing since 1962.
Central Park has been at the epicenter of many historic events, from protests to concerts on the Great Lawn. The park has evolved as the city has. By the 1960s and 70s, Central Park had fallen into a state of disrepair. Vandalism, neglect, and crime became rampant, turning this once pristine urban oasis into a symbol of urban decline.
There's always cycles of ups and downs. Different times when the park was in disrepair. During the Depression, there were encampments and things like that. But by the 1960s, if you look at the budget of the city, a lot of things were going wrong.
The park's landscape suffered from erosion, and many of its iconic structures were damaged.
The city wasn't prepared to do what it needed to do to really bring the park around. And the Conservancy evolved out of a task force group in the 80s to really start to look in a broader way at the park. When they first started out, they would do a survey and they'd have like, do you come to the park to play baseball? They'll use the playgrounds. And when they put do nothing in the question, that was the most checked off box. You know, people want the respite from all the other options. And so it's a balancing act in the park, even as we do improvements, to still keep the thing that brings everybody here.
As the park recovered, another once deteriorated section found new life and meaning. Strawberry Fields, a serene memorial dedicated to John Lennon.
Right after John Lennon died, Yoko Ono gave the first $1 million contribution to the park. She worked with our landscape team here at the Conservancy, and they chose this mosaic from the Italians, inscribed Imagine in the middle. And it's on a path, a fork in the path, the road off of 72nd Street, but you can see the Dakota where he lived.
Today, the park hosts 42 million visitors a year, all looking for something different: relaxation, recreation, birdwatching, and theater.
Walking into Central Park off of 81st Street, you really can just feel your shoulders start to relax.
It also serves as vital urban infrastructure.
Parks like Central Park cool the air. They absorb stormwater runoff. The trees clean the air of particulate matter. They make the city more resilient, which is incredibly important, especially in the face of a changing climate.
Central Park is more than just a park. It's a microcosm of the city's spirit, a place where history, nature, and culture intersect to create something truly unique.
It's a completely different world within the city. And you could kind of get lost in Central Park.
Central Park is the heart and also is the garden of the concrete jungle, New York City.
Central Park stands out as a piece of public engagement around art and nature. It speaks beyond its time period. And I think it will always have a particular meaning.
This belongs to us. This is our park, and the culture that we're all creating here together is ours. And that's just magic.